We are live.
Okay, I have 7 o'clock straight up, so.
Yep, we're ready to go.
Great. Hello, everybody. It is 7 p.m. on Thursday, September 3rd, and I am calling the third regular meeting of the 107th year of the Paradise Valley Governing Board to order. I'd like to read a little bit about our meeting first before we continue on. I'd like to welcome you all to this regular meeting, and the following will be the rules we are using for our meetings while we are on a virtual platform. Although members of the board are not gathered in a central physical location, we do have a quorum in attendance at this meeting by video conference or telephone call. We are meeting by use of WebEx software application, which allows for members of the public to view and or listen to this meeting. Additionally, the meeting is being streamed live on YouTube. If you do need accommodations, please contact Deanne Chisman at 602-449-2298. While we employ a virtual format for our meetings, we have been encouraging members of the public wishing to have comments read into the record at our meetings to send written comments to the governing board. For our next regular meeting, comments can be sent via email to governingboard@pvschools.net by 10 a.m. Thursday, October 8th. If we are meeting virtually, submitted comments from the public may be read during the corresponding place on the agenda. If we are able to meet in person that day, we expect to be able to reinstate the traditional call to the public, during which members of the public may address the board. In either instance, there can be no discussion of any such comments from the public. All other meeting procedures will adhere to board-adopted procedures to the extent practicable. A video recording from this meeting will be available to the public no later than Wednesday, September 9. We apologize in advance for any unforeseen difficulties, although I think we're getting pretty good at this, and ask for and appreciate your patience as we navigate through these conditions. Thank you very much. I would ask that you now join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then when we are finished with the pledge, a moment of silence, please. We lost a member of our PV family, Delia Vargas, a campus assistant at Vista Verde Middle School. She had been at Vista Verde since 2002. So please join me in the pledge, and then a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. May I have roll call, please?
Dr. Skidmore?
Here.
Mrs. Matura?
Here.
Mrs. Greenberg?
Here.
Mrs. Case?
She waved.
Oh, good. And Mrs. Bacon?
Here.
Thank you very much. Approval of agenda, Dr. Welsh, please.
Thank you, President Greenberg. Items approved by consent will not come up for discussion during the meeting, but will be approved when the agenda is adopted. This is possible since members of the governing board receive the agenda along with backup materials at least 24 hours prior to the meeting and have time to review and consider all items. Prior to the agenda being adopted, members of the governing board may ask that an item be removed from the consent agenda and brought to the floor for discussion at the appropriate place on the agenda. I would like to offer the agenda as posted.
Thank you very much. Does any member of the board wish to move anything from the consent agenda to the approval or discussion agenda? I guess to the approval part of our agenda. Seeing none, Dr. Skidmore, may I have a motion, please?
Move.
Thank you very much. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next on our agenda is governing board statements, and as we have been doing, I will go in roll call order with me at the end. Dr. Skidmore.
Oh, I'm always first. I'm just delighted. Well, I have no comments, just questions which cannot be addressed via the agenda tonight because they're not on the agenda. My first priority is returning our children to face-to-face instruction. And I would really like to thank our community because the health metrics indicate that that may be possible. Yet I've seen no plan when and how we will return both our students and our staff to school when it's safe to do so. Nor have I seen any collaboration with parents, teachers, and staff on this issue. We like to talk about social distancing when we absolutely know that that's not possible by classroom size, teacher shortage, and monetary issues. My second question is in regard to high school contact sports. And I will support the AIA guidelines as they came out yesterday. But I believe as a school district, we must be proactive. I assume that freshman football is to be played and that JV football is to be played. I don't know how many buses will be needed to transport how many players to freshman, JV, and varsity games. Yes, I read too that there's no equipment sharing. And at the conclusion of an away game, will our teams have the opportunity to clean their faces and their hands and perhaps even change their clothes before boarding the bus home? Now at home games, I would suggest that the Paradise Valley School District extend an opportunity to the visiting teams to change their clothes, take a shower, wash their face, wash their hands, whatever their coaches want. And I don't have any answers, just questions.
Thank you, Dr. Skidmore. Mrs. Matura?
I was very excited this morning when a couple of things. One, I noticed that the county is now posting the data at 9 a.m. instead of 4 p.m. on Thursday. So that was a very, very nice surprise. And to see us below that 5% magic percentage number for the first time. So that was very excited. So I am thankful that we're headed in the right direction, and just wanted to say thank you and appreciate everyone for hanging in there. It's not an easy time for anyone involved in any of this. We continue to read everything that comes to us, every letter, every email. We're paying attention, and we want to get the kids back at school as soon as we can. So I'm very pleased to see the data moving in the right direction. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Matura. Mrs. Case?
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. After reading many emails in favor of schools being reopened, parents and teachers and some from parents, teachers, and some students even, I have read your heartfelt concerns as a parent and as a grandparent to many, many children. Some of those grandchildren have returned to in-person learning and some have not. And I want to just share with parents that I understand your concerns. I truly do. And as someone who has taught phonics to children for almost 30 years, um, it's imperative that we get children in K3 back to school as soon as we can because they're learning how to read. And nothing is more important than learning how to read in those early grades. And it is very difficult, as I have tried with some of my grandchildren in groups, to teach children in a group phonics and to capture their attention. I know how vital it is, no matter how hard our teachers are working. I know how vital it is for children to be in class, learning in front of it with the teacher in front of them. So I want all of you parents to know that I have read your emails. I agree with most of your concerns. I'm very grateful that the numbers have come down from the county this morning, and how grateful we are that they came at it this morning and not this afternoon. And I just want to say that I'm listening to you, and I want to get K3 back in school first as fast as we can. And I'm hoping that we can have a study session as soon as we possibly can and get this going and have a vote on it and get the schools opened up as quickly as we can when they are continue to show the good metrics that we are seeing now. But I think we need to plan to open them as quickly as we can and not delay in any way. So those are my comments. I appreciate the hard work of teachers and of students, and I've spoken to as many students as I can, and some are doing well online and some are struggling. So I appreciate, I know that teachers are probably working twice as hard as they ever have before. And I acknowledge that. I know it's difficult, and we want to get you back in school. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Case. Mrs. Bacon?
Yeah, I'm going to echo a lot of what my fellow board members have said, but I'd also like to add that this is in our grasp. We can make a difference as a community in driving these numbers down. So I want us all to join together to make this happen. There is nothing more important than an in-person teacher-student relationship to facilitate learning. I believe that to my core. I've had conversations with friends who have said to me, this is the future of education. And I said, oh gosh, I hope not, because that's not what I want. I want kids in schools. So let's band together. Let's do this work. Let's wear masks. Let's social distance. Let's wash hands. Let's do everything we possibly can as a community to move forward and make this happen. I want to also, I'm thinking about transitions. I've been thinking a lot about transitions over the past couple of days. And I think the transition back to school, while it's going to be great, we've got to prepare both teachers and students and parents for this. So we have to make sure that our students feel safe. We have to make sure that parents understand what our policies are going to be and what our plan is. So the most that we can do from our perspective, we will do, but we're going to need parents' help in making this transition smooth for both their students and the schools and our teachers and our employees. So I want to thank all of the parents and staff who have emailed us, both asking us to stick to our metrics and asking us to open in person and immediately. So we do read all of those, and I'm grateful that keeps coming in, and I make a point every day of looking at those and seeing what's new and what's updated. So I want to thank you for that, and let's just get this done. Let's do it. Let's wear masks. Let's social distance. Let's wash hands and get it done. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Bacon. I'm not sure there's more I can add to that. I think we all agree. I mean, I don't think there's anybody on this board. I don't think there's anybody in the administration. I don't think there's a teacher. I don't think there's a parent, and I don't think there's a student who does not agree that in-person learning is where we want to be, and we want to be there as soon as possible. I agree. I felt like a kid in a candy store when I saw the metrics from Maricopa County today, not just for us, but for other districts surrounding us. I'm one of those stats geeks, so I like check all the zip codes and I check all of the districts and everything else. And it's incredibly heartening to see our community in PV and the communities around us really working to get those metrics down. So I agree with everyone else. I think we're all incredibly heartened that we are going to be back sooner than later. And I know over time we have all chatted about, we've discussed what those plans will look like. And I know that our various district committees are on top of that. And I know that we will be looking at that, obviously in more depth because we are closer and we have more data and we are more prepared in terms of the amount of PPE and everything else that we need within our classrooms and hand sanitizer and everything else so that we can ensure that the mitigation strategies that have been in our plan all along can continue to be followed. So as everyone else said, we have been reading all of your comments, and as diverse as our district is, that diversity is reflected in the comments we've been receiving. And so I think in the end, though, we all want the same thing, which is to return to in-person learning as soon as we can, as safely as we can. And so thank you all. And next on the agenda, I'm happy to say we're actually able to go back to one of our regular items, which is awards and recognitions. And so first on the agenda will be Susie Seep, President of PVEA, with the PVEA Recognition of Professional Standards Award recipient. Miss.
And if we could, I'll turn it over to Miss Anderson so she can spin it up for us.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good evening, President Greenberg, governing board members, Dr. Welsh, members of cabinet, and virtual attendees. We have 2 employee recognitions to share with you tonight. Our first is the recipient of the Paradise Valley Education Association's Recognition of Professional Standards Award for Teachers. The honoree will be introduced by Miss Susie Seep, PVEA President.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you. Good evening, President Greenberg, Dr. Welsh, Governing Board and Cabinet. I'm here this evening to present the PVA Award for Teachers. We call it PROPS, the professionals recognizing other professionals' success. And we're presenting it tonight to Robert Johnston. Robert is the band teacher at Greyhawk, Desert Shadows, Mercury Mine, and Larkspur. He has 12 years of teaching under his belt, but has been in PVUSD for 3 years. In that time, he's really been noticed. This summer, when I was looking for someone to help Dr. Corson and Mr. Taylor create Google Classroom for KSIC and strings, more than one person replied to my email and told me the only option is Robert Johnston. He's the best we've got by far. The contribution he has already made to every elementary student in the district is making a difference for everyone in PV. In his time in PVUSD, he's also taught at Aero Libre, and he's the coach for the brass section in the Horizon Marching Band, as well as teaching their indoor winds group. He's in his 2nd year leading the band PLC, the professional learning community for all of the elementary band teachers. But this is the PROPS nomination that I received from his colleague, Samantha Camacho. Robert stands above all of the band and strings teachers as a serious go-getter. He goes above and beyond to make sure all of us are prepared and able to do our jobs. As PLC leader, he's revitalized both the band and the strings groups. He's helped create a culture of friendship and support amongst our cohort. Personally, Rojo, as we call him, has motivated me to become more outspoken and engaged and pursue more leadership roles in my string and band community. He encourages and challenges me to be the very best teacher I can. Robert's students love him and learn so much from his exciting and unique teaching style. We work together at Greyhawk, and his interaction with staff is always positive and collaborative. He's always willing to lend a helping hand and represents the epitome of a team player. He is truly an asset to our district, and I am so thankful to have him as both a friend and a colleague in my life. As he likes to say, he has a good job to do, and he does it in a way that should be a model to all teachers in our district. In Robert's words, I am now in my third year with PV. And recently I've received more recognition than in my first decade of teaching in Baltimore. Thank you for continuing offering opportunities to contribute and opportunities to be recognized with awards like props. I have a good job to do. That's my motto, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you for supporting me and therefore my students in their love of the arts. And I can't think of a better example to kick off the year. I am proud to be Robert's colleague, and I'm proud to be associated with teachers like Robert and PVUSD. Thank you for the opportunity.
Congratulations. Thank you very much, Ms. Seif. We are all very proud of our teachers and particularly Mr. Johnston. Our next up is the Paradise Valley Education Support Professional of the Month. PVSEA President, Mr. Sean Webster, will make the presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, President Greenberg, Governing Board, Dr. Welsh, Cabinet, and online guests. As she said, I'm Sean Webster, the President of the Paradise Valley Education Support Employee Association, and we are excited to present September's ESP of the Month to Karen Barnett, the Athletic Assistant at PV High School. Karen is the definition of constant and unconditional love for every single student. Karen is not just at the games to work. She is there cheering on the students, greeting guests, taking care of the coaches and referees, and yet she still manages to get all the scores into the computer at the end of the night before other schools. Karen loves the kids and goes out of her way to make sure they are feeling loved and cared for. She is like the mom of the athletics department. Karen has the greatest ability to make an upset and angry parent that's yelling on the phone stop by using her brilliant British accent, and then they're able to have a nice, calm conversation. We are so blessed to have her on our campus and part of our team. Once again, congratulations to Karen. There were not enough great things said about Karen to put in a letter. She is the best, they said. She did say she was upset that none of her colleagues told her to do her hair that day.
Congratulations, Ms. Barnett. I think it is another wonderful example of the employees that we have working for our district. And so congratulations. Thank you, Mr. Webster. And that concludes our recognitions for this evening, Dr. Welsh.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. And next on the agenda is Dr. Welch.
Thank you again, President Greenberg. For my comments this evening, I have a few notes I'd like to make. And then as we alluded to earlier, we do have some comments submitted by the public that we are going to include in tonight's agenda. So first off, I want to remind everyone that open enrollment for the upcoming 2021-2022 school year is now underway. Even if you don't live in our boundaries, you can attend one of our schools through open enrollment. And we have a new fully online application process that will make it even easier for families to choose PV schools. Applications are being accepted through January, and you can learn more on our website at pvschools.net/enroll-now. The Maricopa County Department of Public Health is offering free immunizations to preschool through 12th grade students this Saturday, September 9th from 9 to 2 at Greenway Middle School. If you're looking for more information, you can go on our website at pvschools.net/reopening. Very much tied to what we were speaking to earlier, September 13th through 19th this month is National Arts and Education Week. And now more than ever, our fine and performing arts play a crucial role in the mental well-being of our students. Even through online learning, our arts teachers have found creative ways for students to continue arts instruction. And I'd like to thank all of our fine and performing arts teachers for their innovation and for their dedication to continue to spark our students' creativity. This September 15th through October 15th is also Hispanic Heritage Month, which recognizes and celebrates the contributions of Americans who trace their roots to Spain, Mexico, Central America, and South America, and the Spanish-speaking nations of the Caribbean, and what they've made to our American culture and society. As a reminder, 32% of our PV school student population are of Hispanic heritage. And yo espero que nuestros maestros celebran y reconozcan la cultura hispánica y las contribuciones de tantos hispanoamericanos. And I hope that our teachers find a way to celebrate and recognize Hispanic culture and the contributions of so many Hispanic Americans. As we've alluded to a couple of times tonight, we do continue to move closer toward meeting our targets for a full in-person reopening, showing positive progress in our two key metrics, percent positivity and cases per 100,000. Our percent positivity went from 5.3% down to 4.03%, putting us in the green on that metric for the very first time. And our cases per 100,000 went down from 40.36 to 28.29, remaining in the yellow, but continuing to decrease. We have a link to our reopening criteria and the Maricopa County dashboard on our website at pvschools.net/reopening. And as a clarification, you may have seen in the news today that Maricopa County as a whole has met benchmarks for a return to in-person learning. This is based on a 2-week decline in cases in the county and percent positivity below 5%. I want to be clear that this benchmark is for hybrid learning options only and is not for a full return to in-person learning. Those metrics for hybrid, it's based on our overall cases in the county and our district, and those numbers do still remain above their recommendation of 10 per 100,000 for a return to in-person learning. With our first metric in the green today, we will be sending out a survey to families regarding their interest to return in person or continue with PV Connect or PV Online either this coming week or the following week at the latest. We've also committed to transition time for families and teachers to accommodate that survey to inform instructional options for families, adjust lesson plans to in-person instruction, and allow for critical professional development and training, including on our safety protocols. So just as an example, if we hit green on both metrics this coming Thursday, September 10th, we would communicate to families regarding that week. We would ensure that our metrics continue to be met on the 17th, and then we would target October 1st as our return to in-person learning following our fall break. And as has been alluded to already this evening, reopening is a topic that's on the minds of many parents and staff, as it should be. We all want to be back in person, and we'll continue to monitor the progress within our district community on reopening benchmarks and reconvene as necessary to follow up with additional discussion and/or action. That wraps up my comments for this evening. I would like to turn it over to Ms. Anderson for our comments that were submitted by call to the public.
Good evening again, President Greenberg, governing board members, Dr. Welsh, members of cabinet, and virtual attendees. Due to the virtual format of the meeting, we are unable to include our traditional call to the public. However, we did encourage members of the public to send written comments to the governing board email address by 10 a.m. the day of the meeting, and outline the submitted comments from the public may be read at the corresponding place on the agenda. As with the traditional call to the public, there can be no discussion of any such comments from the public. Please reference the Arizona Attorney General's opinion dated March 13th, 2020 regarding concerns related to Arizona open meeting law and COVID-19. It is important to note all comments that were received by 10 a.m. today were provided to all the governing board members, and they have had the opportunity to read the comments that were submitted. Additionally, the superintendent's office received all of the comments as well and has read through all the comments submitted. We would like to thank the families and community members for voicing their thoughts and providing input for today's meeting. We received a total of 61 public comments for tonight's meeting. Of those, one was in relation to the parent handbook addendum, one was in reference to fall athletics, and one was a general comment regarding online learning. There were 26 comments in support of following our adopted reopening criteria, and 32 comments requested abandoning our reopening criteria in favor of an earlier return to in-person learning. Some individuals did submit the same comment, and in those instances, I will list the names of all those individuals who submitted that comment before reading it, so that we can value the comments submitted while ensuring there's time to conduct our business for this meeting. We will limit our time on each comment to 1.5 minutes. Ms. Chisholm, if you could help keep track of the time limit, that would be very helpful. And I want to apologize in advance for mispronouncing anyone's name, as I guarantee that will probably happen this evening. Ms. Chisholm, are you ready?
I am.
Okay, our first public comment is from Elena Bernardo. Many parents tuned in to watch the sports update during the study session and the board meeting last week, but there was no indication from you or the board on how you will be addressing all of the fall sports. The last time you commented on your position regarding fall sports was during the August 6th governing board meeting when you said, "It doesn't make sense to me that we say it is not safe for students to be back on campus wearing masks, in groups of 20 to 30, but on the same hand say that for some reason we think it's safe for students not wearing masks, engaging in physical contact with one another, to be back on campus. I understand, of course, the AIA, it would seem, has a different perspective than I do. I don't know what planet they are on with that, to be honest. During all the previous board meetings, you have referenced to the education benchmarks as if they were somehow connected to contact sports. I have reviewed the information from the Arizona Department of Health Services, and the benchmarks you are referencing to are specifically designed for education to help guide decisions on what to offer virtual, hybrid, or in-person instructions, not sports. These education benchmarks were developed to help schools on implementing a safe return to the classroom, not sports. You have not provided any justification or criteria for handcuffing contact sports to education benchmarks. They were not designed or developed for sports. Thank you. Okay, the next comment is from Elise Grimm. I'm a parent in the Paradise Valley Unified School District at Quail Run Elementary School. I have 2 young boys, ages 9 and 10, who attend the school. I have been active in the school between copying papers to help during parties in the classroom and offering whatever help to the teachers in any way I can. I am contacting you as a frustrated full-time working parent. Both my husband and I work out of the home and have to make some serious changes in order to accommodate my children staying home to get an education. We have been working full-time through this entire pandemic as our industry was deemed essential, as are the teachers in the schools, which is where the students should be getting their education. The one they are receiving now, I would not say is an education they deserve in any way. I absolutely love our school and the teachers and the teachers have been doing an amazing job with what they can do online virtually, but my children are suffering socially and emotionally and mentally. This has taken a severe toll on them in many ways. I find the benchmarks that PVUSD has set to be somewhat on the unattainable standard and ridiculous. It seems the numbers set were in fact put into place to keep the kids out of going to school in person for longer than necessary. Then on top of that setting, an additional 2 weeks once the benchmarks has been met to allow teachers to go back to in-person seems excessive. Since teachers should have been prepared to be in person on August 6th as it was, taking their curriculum and making it. Yep. The next is from Karen Kukulik. Once again, our neighboring school districts are voting to open up our schools. Cave Creek just announced their plans to go back in person. Scottsdale is also going back in person, hybrid for a few weeks, then fully in person. Our kids are not being given that opportunity. I fully support local public schools. I loved the idea of my daughter growing up in a neighborhood with kids that attended her local school. We are super fortunate to attend Pinnacle Peak Preparatory. We need to allow students to return to school now. There is no need to wait until mid-October at the earliest. I have confidence that Pinnacle Peak Preparatory, as well as other schools in the district, can open up safely. Yesterday, my daughter was kicked off her Google Meet class at 10:30 a.m. and could not get back on. We spent about an hour trying different things in hopes of her rejoining her class. It wasn't until the end of the day when someone could help us. She missed a day of learning. I'm a fourth grade teacher going back into my classroom with students beginning Tuesday, September 8th. It can be done. We are all super excited to see our students again. I know there are many, many teachers who feel the same way I do. The date from the health department says it's time to go back in person. The incidents of community spread are low. Our students know how to wear masks. They know how to wash their hands for 20 seconds. They understand they need to keep some distance from others. They know school will look different this year. However, they want to be in person with their friends and teachers. The next one is from Melinda Brown. Enough is enough. It's time for our children to be allowed back in their classrooms if that is the request of the parents and teachers. There needs to be another survey done of our parents and teachers with their wishes and recommendations instead of you guys making your own metrics and decisions for our children. I recently spoke to a teacher at Pinnacle Peak Prep, where my children attend, who stated she was never given a survey, but yet you guys always state you have surveyed teachers and parents. So now we know the teachers didn't get surveyed, and parents have been surveyed one time since March 16th. This is unacceptable. Let us parents decide if we feel safe sending our kids back, following the metrics and guidelines outlined by the Arizona Department of Public Health and CDC, not by metrics you have decided upon. The mental health, education, and well-being of my children is extremely important to me, and their needs are not being met in a virtual environment. Cave Creek District read every parent comment at their meeting last night, and we deserve the same. Ready for the next? This is from Tiffany Naughton. It's time for our kids to have the option to resume in-person instruction at their schools. The PV district mission statement to cultivate, lead, inspire world-class innovative thinkers and expert communicators through a focus on the relationship between educator and student built around challenging, meaningful, and engaging curriculum is not being fulfilled with children sitting at home in a room by themselves staring at a small computer screen. Kids have been participating in club sports all summer, have held down summer jobs, took family vacations, spent time with relatives and grandparents, are now practicing school sports, attending classes at their dance studios, going to the movies, going to the malls, going out to eat, etc. Kids can do everything but go to their schools, and that's where they want to be and should be. I have a senior and a sophomore at Horizon, and they want to be physically back in school. They are good students with good grades, but I see how this is affecting their mental health, especially our senior. I am a doctor of chiropractic that works for a company with 7 clinics in the Valley. We have been seeing patients the entire time. We are hands-on and within inches of their faces all day long, and not a single doctor or staff member has the virus. Our surrounding districts, Scottsdale and Cave Creek, are going back. Please don't let our kids be left behind. Thank you for your time. Dr. Tiffany Naughton. Our next is from Kerwin Franklin. I think it's time to admit the metrics you are requiring for going back to school are not realistic when everything is opened in Arizona and we have 0 deaths today. Other schools have chosen to use more reasonable metrics like Great Heart, Scottsdale, and Cave Creek. These schools are even ready to go back immediately, unlike PV, who is not prepared. My children can do everything but go to school, and now you say another 6 weeks minimum. If masks work, kids can go to school, and now not in 6 weeks. Secondly, the data itself is all suspect and very publicly so. The CDC data shows less than 10,000 deaths were purely COVID. Everyone knows people who are counted COVID that were never even tested because the nursing homes get paid. The NFL had false positive. The Ohio governor had false positives. The list goes on. Children are the ones left behind. I have friends who stood in the line but left and were told their in-existence test was positive, yet PV board is still standing strong on false data. The peak is over and the virus will be here to stay. Let's proceed with living. I do not need you to protect my children or myself from the disease. I have an autoimmune disease and get antibodies weekly. I know I have to protect myself, and that's my responsibility, not yours. And school is the one area my kids can catch it. My children need to be in school and not stuck in their rooms all day staring at a computer. The next is from Jennifer Vogel. As a parent of 2 high school students of PVUSD, it is imperative that we open up our schools. Our kids have suffered enough. I recently had a high school senior graduate at Pinnacle High School, and she lost so much to the school closure. My freshman and junior are also suffering. They need to socialize with their colleagues and teachers. Distance learning is not optimal. As other schools are opening, such as Cave Creek School District, and COVID-19 numbers are decreasing significantly, we cannot wait any longer for our schools to reopen. I ask you to stop putting fear in our children and start working on getting our kids back to school. The amount of stress and mental concerns is very alarming for our kids. Please, I ask you to open the schools immediately. Thank you, Jennifer Vogel. This next one is from Lisa Mork Davis. I'm writing you today as a parent of 2 daughters in elementary school. I've written to you before, but I'm not seeing a response from the board. Here's what I know. Parents, particularly working parents like us, are tired and losing their minds trying to teach, work, and do childcare all at the same time. I am not a teacher, and bless them, for they are doing the best they can. We have not seen a survey of the community go out since May of this year. I do not know where you are getting your information from, but parents that I know are fed up. We need to be given a choice for when we will open up schools. Teachers I have spoken to said that they want to be back in school with them so badly. They also do not need 2 weeks to prepare. They are already in classrooms doing Google meetings. Give them the option as well. They have told me they too are not being surveyed. Metrics. The metrics you set way back when do not really keep up with the times. The CDC, in fact, yesterday set a new policy for who should get tested. Yes, our numbers have gone way down, but to achieve 5% for our district to open up makes no sense. The people getting tested are the ones that have been exposed or ill. If we have more people like me that are staying home doing all the safe things, could only help those numbers go down. Your 5% is very unrealistic. The virus is not going away. We have to learn how to live with it. Even Dr. Crow at ASU said this week in his memo to the school, we have to figure out ways to live and work and get an education. The next is from Amy John. I have written countless times to express my frustration with PVUSD, and my concerns seem to fall on deaf ears. I am beyond disappointed with the district and the decisions being made for our children and families. When we moved here, one of the highlights was the amazing school district, which many parents raved about. Unfortunately, now there are thousands of parents who are very frustrated with the district because we don't see you putting children first in the decisions you are making. Ultimately, your job is to ensure you are educating each child with a high-quality education. Online education does not work well for IEP students, like my 3rd grader with autism, and those who have a lack of support in the home, parents working multiple jobs, language barriers, etc. Schools provide not only education, but a safe place, nutrition services, and physical education opportunities. Sitting our students in front of a screen all day, 5 days a week is not cutting it. They are not engaged nor excited about learning anymore. You have failed my 3 children and thousands of others like them. You have not listened to the community nor given us a fair option for in-person learning. There has not been a survey for parents or teachers since last spring. You have chosen fear over facts. The science and data does not support postponing in-person learning until October. Other surrounding districts, such as Cave Creek and Scottsdale Unified, are returning to in-person learning on 9/8 and 9/14 respectively. Our numbers are super low and our county has met ADHS benchmarks. Your more stringent benchmarks The next one is from Tammy Vining. I want kids to return to school. I am not aligned with the metrics for returning to school. So many people have had COVID pass through their families, including mine. It came and went with far less of an impact than expected. Nowhere near as bad as the flu. I know this is not the case for people with health issues for the elderly. In those few cases where an elderly person lives with a family that has a student in school, they can take their own measures and precautions. If you think you are saving lives, you are not. You are only putting your students at great risk for depression, anxiety, and suicide. Not to mention you are crushing their enthusiasm for learning. Cave Creek and Scottsdale are returning to school next week. Our kids will be left behind if we do not return to school now. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, Tammy Vining, Horizon High School. The next is from Greg Wicks. For the board meeting on September 3rd, please discuss and consider reopening schools for in-person attendance. Many school districts through the valley, including neighboring Cave Creek District, are back open in person September 8th or are already doing in-person classes. The COVID rates are decreasing at a rapid rate, and I feel the risk is worth the benefit. My child is in first grade at Desert Trails Elementary. Miss Branson has done a phenomenal job during this virtual learning, but it's difficult for my child to maintain focus for so long on a computer and is looking forward to going back to class. Thank you for your time and consideration, Greg Wicks. The next one is from Eric and Allie Walkowitz. I have 4 children in the Paradise Valley School District for the last 10 years, and when we moved home 3 years ago, we only looked within the district because we loved it so much. We wanted our firstborn daughter and the rest of children to go to Pinnacle High School. The school year she started her freshman year. We are so disappointed in the guidelines being used to reopen PV schools. The data being used is weeks behind and isn't the same guidelines sent by Governor Ducey. We have more than flattened the curve. What we have also done is made students further behind in their education, further behind in social skills, further behind in living a healthy, active lifestyle, and further behind in mental health. My oldest daughter has become more withdrawn and sad by the day. Her only hope was thinking she would go back on September the 8th, and that was taken away from her too. My youngest son has a student cry in his class almost the entire time, and my 6th grader today spent over 30 minutes listening to the teacher try to help students who couldn't log on to activity clear their cache. It's a tragedy to have our children in this situation and not have a choice. The choice was given before school started to have PV Online and PV Connect with the intention of returning to in-person September 8th for Connect students. Now that choice is being taken away. We as tax-paying parents of children in the district should have a say in when we go back. The parents who don't want to return to school don't have to, but the ones who do. And this next one is from Dr. Jenna Camerata. And then I will also read the names of several other individuals that sent the same information. So Dr. Camerata, he says, along with about 300 local parents have attached a letter regarding school reopening. Lisa Parsons, Erica and Brent Burton, Dr. Antonio Camerata, Troy and Lisa Campbell, Karen Kuklik, Darren and Kristen Nutter, Doris Stipek, and Dina Ross sent the exact same letter. As parents of the students of PVUSD, we are getting more concerned by the day that you have no intention of following your return to school plan. Many schools have been proactive in getting ready for in-person school return. They have surveyed parents over the last several weeks to find out who plans to return to school versus online versus leave the district. Instead, PVUSD has made incredibly strict criteria for in-person return based on a delayed dashboard, 2 weeks maintaining those levels, and then 2 weeks to get ready. But even then, we are given no assurances of returning to class. With the current plan, essentially there is a 6 weeks delay from when we meet the metrics you have laid out, which seems unnecessarily excessive. The current PVUSD reopening criteria for in-person learning plan has a footnote that reads, metrics based on a 2-week average within our district boundaries. Previously, the footer read within the PV district and surrounding zip codes and areas, so the criteria has changed without clear metric scope definitions nor transparency on those revisions, which are a moving target. As COVID-19 numbers continue to decrease each week in Arizona and Maricopa County, prevalence as of the week ending of August 23rd is 5.07% for Maricopa County per AZDHS. We are informed of meetings you have discussing keeping school closed until a convenient date, the end of the quarter or after winter break, or if benchmarks are met and only with an additional following 2-week break. Convenience left us all back in March. If our goal is to prioritize The next public comment is from Tommy Becker. Please address returning to in-school learning as quickly as possible. The parameters put forth towards our green light for returning are not practical and need to be reevaluated. Our kids are resilient and are a low risk for transferring COVID. We were given a survey back in July about returning to school, and the majority wanted in-person return in August. Why were these results not used in determining whether schools open? Your funding comes from taxpayers of the community in which you serve. We all should have some weight in the decision-making process. Yesterday was yet another day of internet outages and distractions that prevented any learning from happening. PVUSD is not built, constructed, or trained in online school instruction. We are an on-site learning school district. So please let our kids return to campus now. We should be striving to lead the way in returning to campus as quickly as possible. Our children are suffering academically, mentally, and physically every day that you choose to keep them off campus. Please do your job you were elected to and fight for our kids. Thank you, Tommy Becker. And the next is from Rebecca Sachs. Thankful for your thoughtful reopening plan and supporting the teachers, staff, and students of your district. I know the pressure on you to reopen must be intense. As a nurse in your district, I firmly believe you are doing the right thing and have picked the appropriate benchmarks. I know there is a rally planned for Thursday before the governing board meeting. As a parent in the district whose parents do not speak for me, is distance learning hard? Yes, absolutely. It's hard to work and do kindergarten and second grade from home, but I know this is safer for everyone involved. This is the right plan. We are a diverse district with many people, with people coming from all over to attend. We need to be mindful of reopening, and I appreciate your guidance and thoughtfulness. Please continue on this path and do not be swayed by the parents protesting. You and your teachers and staff, our district, are the experts, not this loud minority who have no idea what it takes to run a school or a classroom. Thank you for your continued thoughtfulness and science-based reopening plan. Rebecca Sachs, RN. The next is from Amanda Taylor. As such, data exists from other countries in regards to children's susceptibility to getting COVID. Is it possible to look at a phased reopening of our schools instead of an all-at-once option? Perhaps bring pre-K through second grade in, and then 2 weeks later bring in 3rd through 6th. At the middle and high schools, it could be 1 grade level at a time. Perhaps this is a way to not put staff and teachers at such a risk while also protecting our children. Thank you for your time, Amanda Taylor. The next is from James Newman. My name is James Newman. I am a 35-year-old father of 3, 2 of which are enrolled in PV School District. I think it's important to emphasize my support, respect, and admiration for educators. My grandparents, mother, sister, and wife have all taught in the state of Arizona. That being said, I have never been more disappointed, concerned, and offended by the actions of the teachers and their governing boards as I am today. Collectively, the people are tired of being lied to. At the same time of this pandemic, we were told to stay home for 15 days and flatten the curve, which we all did. When that was not enough, our quarantine durations were extended. Jobs were lost, hospitals were never overrun, and deaths declined. Yet we remained silent. Then the headlines changed. When death counts no longer supported the narrative, the news, governors, and educators shifted focus to cases. We were told that cases were too high, and once again, quarantine and unconstitutional business closures were reinstated. Jobs were lost, hospitals never overrun. Deaths declined, and so did the cases. Yet we remained silent. Through all of this, we, the people, have been respectful, compliant, and supportive of a system that no longer supports us in return. The CDC has changed or revised death counts from the novel COVID-19 virus multiple times. Milestones continue to move or be redefined as each one is achieved. Research and data is blatantly ignored, as Senator Rand Paul points out. The next one is from Jennifer Turley. Let's reopen only when it's safe. Please do not reopen our schools until all metrics are green. I'm looking forward to meeting my students in person, but I support a safe return only when all metrics set by PV have been met. Sincerely, Jennifer Turley, 7th grade teacher at Shea Middle School. The next one is from Heidi Winden. I'm grateful to work for a district that has adopted benchmarks-based approach to determine our reopening date. I feel that using science and data is the safest way forward rather than relying on outside influences to dictate when we can reopen. The safety of our students, their families, and my colleagues are too important to allow decisions to be made based on emotions. I'm also glad that some other districts are reopening before us. It will allow us to observe what is and isn't working for them so that we can refine our reopening plan as needed. Additionally, we will be able to observe the effects of the state reopening bars, movie theaters, and gyms prior to our district reopening so that we have a clear picture of the trajectory of the pandemic with these restrictions lifted. I think all this is important, not only to make sure that it is safe to reopen, but to make sure that we will be able to stay open. If we reopen too soon and have to roll back things, it will not only be difficult for students and teachers from an academic standpoint, but also for parents who plan their work schedules around their children's educational needs. Our parents and students need stability and predictability during these challenging times, and I think the only way we can provide that is to stick to our current plan. Thank you for your time and consideration and commitment to PVUSD. Heidi Winden, Sandpiper Elementary School teacher. The next one is from Pamela Folk. I want to thank the governing board for supporting the PV superintendent's reopening PV schools plan, which sets criteria for reopening our schools safely. As a parent of a Horizon High School student and Sunrise Middle School teacher, I want my child to be back to in-person instruction and want to be face-to-face with my students. However, I want this transition to be sustainable. The metrics decided upon for reopening in-person instruction were planned for a safe and sustainable reopening of the schools. I understand that the current distance learning is working well for some and not for others, yet a reopening and closing again due to case spikes would disrupt student learning even more. I appreciate the plan put into place to use metrics to guide the reopening and ask the governing board to continue to support this plan. Sincerely, Pamela Folk, teacher. The next one is from Doris Stipek. Sorry, apologize. Knew I was going to do that. I'm writing to express my disappointment in your decision to keep schools in your district closed for in-person learning. My children, 11, 10, and 6, have suffered a great deal due to this. Their academic progress has stalled since March, and their psychological state at this point is very concerning, to say the least. Our family is also dealing with financial strain due to the fact that I am not able to work full-time so I can be available to my kids at home for virtual learning. The stress this has caused me as a single parent is beyond belief. COVID-19 is not what is hurting me and my children. It is their inability to be in school, learn, and interact, and for me to go to work to be able to support them. The lack of human connection and the variety of interaction so necessary for their healthy development has caused signs of depression, such as social withdrawal, lack of energy and joy in my older children. I'm becoming more alarmed every day and fear that there will be no support for these children available to deal with the trauma that has been put upon them by your decisions. I am an RN, which requires working in close contact with a multidisciplinary team and patients, and I feel very safe protecting myself with a mask and hand hygiene. Science and data has proven the same. The benefits far outweigh the risks, and only way to help this generation of children is to allow their parents the choice of in-person learning ASAP. Our children deserve better than what they have been offered by you and your district in the past 6 months. Our children are our future, and their needs should come first. The next one is from Christy Krugman. We support you, and we understand you are under a great deal of pressure from all sides of this crisis, but I believe you have a great responsibility to uphold health to the utmost importance during this pandemic. What do any of us have if we don't have our health? What do our schools have if we don't have a safe environment for our children and educators? Is it worth risking the health of our community to open schools without meeting metrics or even prior to proven treatments or vaccines? If and when you do consider reopening, I strongly urge you to do so in a very measured process. There are too many what ifs with COVID. All age groups can develop long-term and possibly lifelong effects to their body. If they contract the virus, based on the cases to date, COVID appears to attack the brain, organs, and lungs. Blood clots can occur which can lead to heart damage, heart attacks, and strokes. Also, blood vessel problems can lead to long-lasting issues with the liver and kidneys. COVID is even known to cause diabetes in children. There are too many unknowns with this virus. We are still learning about it. None of us know how our bodies will respond when we do get COVID. Because of this, it seems unnecessarily risky to hold school in a public forum. There are many factors to consider in reopening school protocols: PPE, safety measures, etc. Will kids really be able to wear masks all day, social distance, and keep clean hands throughout the day? What happens when a student or teacher or staff gets infected? And think of all the parents who The next one is from Jay Gandy. Honorable Governing Board, I'm writing to show my strong support for staying closed until all metrics are green. I'm looking forward to a safe return for all staff and students once the metrics that were previously decided upon are met. Thank you for all you are doing. I feel truly blessed to work for such a supportive district. This one is from Erica Williams. I understand that people will be ready to return to in-person at different speeds. At a parent meeting held by Dr. Welsh and other district leaders before the start of the school year, it was briefly mentioned that those who remain in PV Connect would be taught by their same teacher, who would have part of their classes online and part in person. For continuity of learning, this is great. I'm concerned, however, for the quality of education of the students in PV Connect online classroom. This is essentially the model that ASU is using right now, and it has taken a lot of training, money, and resources to equip the teachers in classrooms to provide a quality experience to both the online and on-ground students. What type of training and technology will be provided to our teachers in the already busy semester when they will be dealing with mask compliance and distancing in the classroom to enable them to succeed in this model? Also, will the schedule shift back to a normal school day schedule, meaning the Connect students will be looking at a computer for even longer during their day? What about after-school activities? Will the Connect students lose the opportunity to participate, or will they be offered in a dual mode? This is not to be negative, but I'm working in this model currently, and so I'm aware of many of the potential pitfalls that can be encountered if not proactively addressed. Perhaps the PV Connect model has shifted, but for programs like DLI, there's no chance of having enough students or teachers to support a full class that is on ground. The next is from Kara Rosenstein. I'm a parent of a child in the district, and I support staying closed until all metrics are green. My son has been thoroughly enjoying PV Connect, and his teacher has been so wonderful in engaging him. I'm looking forward to the safe return based on the metrics set by PV. Thank you for all you're doing in this time. The next is from Henry and Laura Hill. We are the parents of students in elementary, middle, and high schools in PVUSD. We are writing in support of the approach the school district has taken towards opening the schools for in-class learning. We are glad that PVUSD is taking a deliberate and cautious approach. Arizonians have already experienced what can happen when we try to jump ahead and open things too quickly, spiking cases of COVID-19, hospital ICU beds nearing capacity, and moving backwards by reclosing businesses and reopening restrictions or reimposing restrictions. Emotions should not lead our decision making, facts and data should. Mask use, hand washing, and social distancing have increased in the state, so the metrics for in-class learning are moving towards green in Maricopa County and the PVUSD boundary. Taking the time to ensure that the metrics keep trending down and to allow the staff and teachers to transition to in-class learning are the best path forward. The decision by the district to bypass a hybrid option is correct. The logistical challenges and confusion this would cause for anyone outweigh any benefits from students being in class part-time for a couple of weeks. Once the district determines that it has reached green in all three metrics for 2 weeks in a row, setting the date to return to in-class instruction will provide parents, students, teachers, and staff with clarity. Our kids return to school safely. Thank you for your time and effort that has been put into the reopening plan developed by PVUSD and for your transparency and communication. Kids. The next is from Aaron Rawich. We're in unprecedented times where tough decisions are forced to be made. As a parent in the PVUSD of the 5th and 7th graders, I commend the board on their plans to determine when it will be safe to reopen, and I urge you to stay the course. Putting the safety of our students and teachers must always take precedent over convenience and public opposition. Yes, we all want our kids to be back in school. It is the place where they will most thrive, but we can't send them back until it is truly safe to do so for everyone involved. If we go back too soon, then we will be right back where we started. Please continue to follow the metrics and plan that have already been established. Thank you for your continued concern for the health and safety of our school community. Eric Rawich, parent at Sandpiper Elementary and Sunrise Middle Schools. The next is from Jeremy Runyon. Good afternoon, board members. I appreciate everything you are doing to ensure our safety and the safety of the students. As a parent and employee of PVUSD, I fully support that schools remain closed until the green light is met per your reopening plan. Jeremy Runyon, 8th grade math. And the next is from Dr. Dana Hudson. I know this is a very trying time in regards to the state of education and the many tough decisions that are being made daily as we navigate this unprecedented time. I want to personally reach out and offer my support for staying closed until all metrics are met as a district. As a teacher and a coach, I'm absolutely looking forward to teaching and coaching on campus when we can ensure that teachers, staff, and students alike are provided with a safe space to return to school. I know that there are other stakeholders in the district that are pushing towards reopening, whether in person or hybrid, but until we can meet all of the metrics for optimum safety, I fear that we'll be experiencing a yo-yo effect of shuffling between in-person and distance learning if we open prior to all of our metrics being in the green. This distant learning thing has been difficult for all involved, no doubt about that. Teachers are having to revamp and rework their entire curriculum and have also become curriculum specialists, technology support, time managers, on top of all their other daily teaching duties. Students are struggling with navigating new platforms, technology issues, along with distractions at home. While the distance learning system is not ideal, students and teachers are ultimately safer at home. If we were to offer a hybrid model, that difficulty level will grow exponentially for both students and teachers. On a basic level, the management skills needed by the teacher for distance learning would only be stretched thinner for a hybrid model, managing both students in the class and moderating students online. The next is from Melissa Fink. I'm writing to express my support for the current plan to reopen only when the metrics tell us we have the best chances to maintain the health and safety of all staff and students. I truly appreciate the time and effort you have been putting in for the past few months to develop a responsible, well thought out plan. Thank you, Melissa Fink, Sandpiper Elementary School parent. The next one is from Dale Baranga. I am writing this email as a parent to a student in a PVUSD high school and a varsity football player. It is great to see that the COVID numbers are decreasing at a rate that is very encouraging across the city, state, and nation. We are doing what is needed to get this virus under control. I'm concerned about our students in our district. I had an interesting conversation with a football coach and parents from another high school in a different district. Their statement shocked me. They said that they are used to PVUSD to be the leader in the greater Phoenix area until this pandemic. They saw PVUSD do nothing, and they saw their district make moves for students. They saw PVUSD start up and shut down their sports, but their district maintains. They were utterly shocked and still are today with what is happening and statements being made by people in the PVUSD meetings, tweets, and blogs. It seems to them and other parents that they know what districts are following different rules and data. They thought it was funny that PVUSD was getting left behind. This came true even more Tuesday night when a neighbor district, Cave Creek, agreed to start in-person learning next Tuesday. People can go to the bars now, but schools cannot. Last week, we were in the green in one category, while a neighboring district was in the green in two categories. I believe from my calculation, we should be in green in another category this week in another category. The third category seems to be nearly impossible to get to unless the virus is nearly gone. The next one is from Tony Pantera. I have lived in the district for almost 40 years. My children have attended schools here as well as my grandchildren. One of the biggest reasons this is true is due to the way this district puts the children's well-being first. Thank you for continuing this tradition by using science to determine when our children can safely return to live instruction. Stay the course. I am behind you. The next one is from Tamara Urong. There seems to be some unrest in the community about returning to school. I understand the path to return is multi-layered and not just for students, but for parents, teachers, and I can imagine the district as a whole. Balancing the health of our community with the needs of our students is complicated, and you have taken your time to evaluate our circumstances and stand with the facts. Thank you for grounding your convictions in science when evaluating all stakeholders' risk. Our family felt a huge sense of relief when you reinforced the Maricopa County benchmarks for returning to in-person school. By basing our return on local data, our community is able to track and enhance our recovery. Everyone can participate in our return to what will be a new normal: mask up, wash hands, socially distance, and stay home when possible. To dismiss the guidance established by our state and local healthcare experts is to endanger our community at large. We know scientists are learning more and more as the weeks pass. Some scientists say a percentage of our younger students may not experience the same level of risk as older children or adults, but we don't know that for certain, and we don't absolutely know who those kids are. Children live in homes with adults who go out to the grocery stores and places of employment. What kind of example does a premature return to the class set for our students? Are we telling them the rules pertain to everyone else except us? Are we entitled to go back to class and ignore the science merely because we are uncomfortable with the alternative? The next is from Cody Gordon. Good evening. Some time ago, I wrote to you all expressing my hopes that the district would avoid being in school classes on August 5th, and I was relieved when you voted to push things back and begin school remotely. I again applaud your decision to set a benchmark and a waiting period and to follow that benchmark to ensure the safest possible return. Though teaching remotely has been quite a challenge, my colleagues and I are finding our stride and doing our best, and we are doing our utmost to support our students and their families. I write to you again because other districts are choosing to abandon their prior decisions and are choosing to return to in-person classes before their benchmarks are met and before they can effectively mitigate risk. citing pressure from extra vocal parents. I urge you to hold fast to your decision and not to mistake the vociferous for a majority opinion. Many of us are quite supportive of your current course of action, and this is my contribution to that voice. My support for a well-planned return is not made out of fear, but out of understanding that if we return too early, we will find ourselves understaffed, quarantining, and perhaps having to return to remote learning. I appreciate your time. Thank you. Cordy Gordon. The next is from Stephanie Henderson. Our family is 100% in favor of an immediate return to in-person learning. As a PVUSD family, we are in agreement with the CDC, Academy of Pediatrics, and the AZ Department of Child Safety in their call for in-person classes. We echo the statements of said organization in the belief that children are seeking normalcy and will benefit from the engagement associated with traditional learning formats. Despite the best efforts made by PVUSD for online learning, it is a poor replacement for learning and intervention that takes place in a traditional classroom. We join thousands of families across our state in calling for the way these metrics are used to be reevaluated to prioritize in-person learning sooner rather than later. An overwhelming majority of children, families, and teachers are ready to return in person. Those who are not have the freedom to utilize distance learning. We ask for leadership within our district that makes reasonable and practical decisions based on facts, not fear. And that fact is being at school in person is a safe choice. The next one is from Amanda Lim. While you may be receiving recent opposition to decisions made in order to maintain the safety of students and staff in regards to reopening school, I wanted to reach out in order to express gratitude and support. The attached letter comes from me, not as a scientist with an in-depth knowledge of COVID-19, but as a parent of a child enrolled under your care and guidance. It isn't easy enforcing regulations that may very well look back at in 10 to 20 years and unanimously know they were right. But in these times, it seems like complaints want to be heard more than compliments want to be paid. Speaking on behalf of parents that appreciate all the work you put in, but may not have had the effort in them to say it to you, you have our full support. The only request I have of you is that this letter be read into public comment for the September 3rd meeting. I want to start by saying thank you for using expert advice and scientific metrics to determine when it is best to reopen the PVUSD school for in-person learning. Nationwide and at a local level, there is pressure to open schools immediately and get our students back in-person learning. But I am grateful that you have not fallen to the pressure and instead are following expert advice on when it is safe for not only our students, but staff as well as the wider community to reopen our district schools. At the moment, the numbers are trending down in Arizona, but they are not low enough to reopen yet. The last time the state reopened prematurely, our numbers went up at an exponential rate, and our death toll immediately went from hundreds to thousands of lives lost in the state. The next one is from Nicole Burns. I'm writing to express my full support and waiting until the state is in the green to reopen our schools. As a parent in the Paradise Valley Unified School District, I am comfortable knowing the district is following this guideline before opening our schools to our teachers and students. As someone who is at an increased risk of severe illness from COVID, I am thankful the district is being patient and cautious. While I understand everyone wants to return to a normal life, I want to return when it is safe for everyone. Thank you for following this guideline and keeping our families and teachers safe. Sincerely, Nicole Burns. The next one is from Sarah Millett. As a parent of 2 children in the Paradise Valley School District, I wanted to reach out and thank you for committing to wait to open our schools until we are green and it is considered safe to do so. While I view education to be extremely important, returning in person is not worth risking my family or my community's health or lives. I'm not going to lie, virtual learning hasn't been a cakewalk every day in our house, but I am extremely impressed with the kids' teachers and what they have been able to accomplish with their classes in the PV Connect format. It is clear that the district and the teachers have put so much energy into making it successful. From the teachers that I know and have spoken with, teaching virtually is way more work, but I hope they know it is not going unnoticed or unappreciated. Aside from the serious health issues or death that could result from opening before it has been deemed safe, I worry that doing so would result in the loss of some of our fantastic and qualified teachers and staff out of fear of returning in person. We know that they are not compensated nearly enough for all that they do, and I would hate for some of them to decide that risking their health and the health of their families wasn't worth staying in the profession. Would returning to in-person learning immediately be the easiest thing to do? Hands down, yes, for students, for parents, and for teachers. But this is also a teaching moment for our kids. The easy choice is not always the best one. I also know that the district is getting a lot of pressure to reopen schools before it is considered safe. Thank you, Dr. Welsh and Governing Board, for helping teach our children not to cave to peer pressure, not to choose the easy way out. The next one is from Albert Aiken. My wife and I have closely followed the communication from Superintendent Walsh and were surprised to learn last week that the district had adopted return to school protocol back on August 6th. That was more conservative than recommended by the State Department of Health Services. Is it possible that we missed the details of that announcement at that time, but we have been unable to find any explanation for the board's decision. Superintendent Welsh characterizes the decision as being consistent with ADHS guidelines, but in critical ways, it is more conservative. For example, number one, the decision ignores the option of hybrid learning for which Paradise Valley School District may qualify as soon as next week, for the week of August the 9th, within 12.12% positivity of already meeting. Two, the board is requiring an additional 2 weeks after reaching the minimum level, which itself reflects data that is up to 2 weeks old, before beginning in-person learning. This means PV will be in minimal transmission for a full month before kids go back to school. Meanwhile, bars, movie theaters, and others are now reopening, but our public school district remains closed. My family is very fortunate. My wife and I can work remotely and periodically monitor our daughter's progress. We have excellent technology at our home to support her. She is a high achiever and extremely self-motivated, and her teacher this school year has been nothing short of amazing. With all the benefits she has, our daughter still struggles with the challenges associated. Oh, I'm gonna butcher this name, so I apologize in advance. Dr. Michelle Buenafé. As a board-certified pediatrician in the emergency department and a parent of 3 PV students, I am writing in support of the board's in-place metrics continuing current school closures. It is difficult to put into words what it is like to be a healthcare provider during this pandemic. It is equally challenging to be a parent. Never have we as a city, state, or nation faced such an upset. It is a national response to desire a return to normal. Sadly, normal is not an option. Fortunately, there is science developed from generations of historical research and real-time data from around the world to guide us as we learn how to deal with this novel virus. Thank you for following the science. None of us have the gift to know the future of COVID, but I feel confident that the current metrics give our children the best, safest course through this difficult time. Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for standing firm on the metrics already in place and keeping schools closed. Sincerely, Dr. Buenafé. And the next is from Michelle Chinachian Gilbert. As a longtime 9 years and counting PVUSD parent, I want to express our family's continued support of your current return to in-person school plan. We believe strongly that your stated approach seeks to strike a balance between protecting the public health of our Metro Phoenix community at large and at the same time considers the physical and mental health of our students, educators, and supporting paraprofessionals. It's been a difficult adjustment for all. I'm a full-time working parent. My daughters are navigating the difficult transition of starting middle school, high school online. My employer, who incidentally is one of the firms that manufactures N95 masks, has purposely avoided a return to workplace for office workers until at least October, likely longer, until an and unless the makers of significant community spread have waned. Online school certainly has its challenges and limitations. That said, my daughter's instructors at both Sunrise Middle School and Horizon High School have done an awesome job adjusting to this new learning platform. For that, our family is both grateful for their dedication and humbled by their ability to flex under these extraordinary circumstances. Our family is very concerned about our movement advocating a premature return to school in advance of the set PVUSD thresholds for positivity and infection rates. We want to avoid the potential boomerang effect of prematurely returning to school only to return to online learning in the event of an outbreak amongst students or faculty. We want to avoid having our children the next is from April Padilla Gladden. Dr. Welsh and governing board members, my history in Paradise Valley began 35 years ago as a kindergartner at Arrowhead Elementary School. During the last 18 of those 35 years, I've been an educator in the district. It is a blessing to now have my own 3 children attend PV schools. I believe that PV truly is paradise. Paradise because the district respects all of its employees and its students. Paradise because it respects data, science, and uses facts to lead its decision-making. In PVUSD, the superintendents, governing board members, cabinet, and educators have always been known for their leadership roles. They are not just leaders within the district, but they are also leaders in the state. They are keeping their staff and students' health and safety at the forefront of their decision-making reopening plans. Leaders who can hear the reports of other districts, private, charter, and public, opening, but still keep the focus on what matters. What matters is the data, numbers, facts. Our current COVID-19 case of numbers do not support opening school buildings as the safest plan of action to take. I've read the comments over the last few days from some saying, but this school is opening this week. That school opened last week. These comments kept me awake last night because I couldn't help but think they are comparing apples to oranges. Great Hearts has less than 2,000 students enrolled between their North Phoenix and Scottsdale campuses. Cave Creek Unified has 5,406 students enrolled, while Kyrene is a much larger district with 17,296 students. The next is from Donna Hamill. I am sending this email in order to try and get the board to just keep things the way they are now. There has been enough switching around for the kids. I think they need the stability of doing what they are doing. Besides that, look at ASU and other colleges. I know high school is different, but kids that age are getting COVID-19 and passing it on to teachers. There have been enough teachers resigning already due to this, and you seem to have a good system going. So please just leave it be until the break or end of semester. Thank you. The next is from Susan Calhoun. I observed and participated in the K-3 virtual classroom over the last month with my grandson. Forcing teachers and students into virtual classrooms is a total failure by our state, district, and school leaders. Assuming that every teacher can be virtual and that every child has the resources and support to learn from home and that their parents are able to afford to be home is unrealistic and irresponsible. I've seen a teacher trying to teach her class with interruptions from her own children at home who need her attention. I have seen a teacher and her class of 15 children try to see each other on a small laptop screen with poor internet. I've seen a teacher teaching reading where the wrong page was displayed on the screen because of her home internet delays. I have seen children upset because they do not know what is going on because the teacher's screen locks up. I have seen children upset because their teacher doesn't hear or see them when they try to participate. I have seen children turn off their cameras or leave the room in frustration. There are children in the class working virtually on computers in group learning centers and daycares with other children because their parents don't work from home. What is the difference between this environment and their classroom? Virtual learning creates even more frustration for teachers, children, and parents. It doesn't compare to in-person learning, which makes children feel comfortable and confident in their learning and participation. Our stores are open, business and restaurants are open, universities are starting classes, other school districts are going back, and COVID counts are down. We can have the riots The next is from Susie Seep. I'm writing as the president of PVEA to thank you for your continued efforts to get us all back to school safely. While we do not all agree on the best way forward, I am grateful to work in a district that embraces a collaborative process that includes everyone: parents, teachers, support professionals, and administrators. And I am especially grateful to the work in the district that has decided to use benchmark data to drive the decision instead of relying on emotions, politics, or speculation. I know that virtual learning is affecting nearly everyone in our community one way or another. I know that there are a wide variety of beliefs and opinions that make every decision difficult. Thank you for your continued leadership and careful consideration of what is best for our community. The next is from Joe Lou Spleth. I'm writing as a parent concerned about the health safety of our students and community. Our knowledge of this coronavirus is limited to experience gained over the past 6 months, only 6 months. Our knowledge of the spread of COVID-19 in classrooms is just beginning across the country as some schools try to reopen with in-person learning, only to find themselves closing with a couple of weeks. There is a great deal more that we don't know than what we do know. I've been very pleased with the district's response and plan to date, as I think that you hold the health and well-being of our students, faculty, families, and community as your primary concern. I urge you to maintain that high standards. I know this is a difficult time for families. My own son is a senior in high school, missing out on senior activities. It's hard. He's also a musician, and 3 of his 5 classes this fall are music: marching band, percussion, jazz band. I know very personally how important it is for these students to perform musically together. Our band director, Ryan Diffenfender, is doing an incredible job of making virtual music instruction engaging, but it still doesn't replace the feeling of performing music together on the social interaction that comes with it. It's very hard on these kids. I also comprehend the difficulties that many families face with supporting virtual education at home, lack of childcare, perhaps one parent not working to stay home with their children. And the mental and emotional toll on students and families is real. None of this is we only have 4 more. The next one is from Erica Marati. I would first like to say that I have been beyond impressed with the strong leadership you have all shown during this historic time. I have read through the entirety of the district's reopening protocol, and it has my full and complete support. I appreciate the district being so thorough in their plan and using the scientific facts to navigate a safe reopening. Therefore, I urge you not to succumb to the pressure of some parents in the district whom have chosen to ignore your experts and would like to force the district to reopen before it is safe to do so. Thank you for your hard work during this time. The next one is from Krista Sharp. I'm writing in regards to the reopening of our schools. As a parent and as an essential worker during this pandemic, I feel the postponement date for reopening our schools is way too late for our kids. All districts surrounding us are opening, which is resulting in increased anxiety and depression in my 17-year-old and my 12-year-old. As I understand the metrics set forth by the board concerning reopening, I do have personal friends and family members that have already returned successfully or are returning to in-person learning across the U.S. despite reaching a mark that seems very irrational considering all businesses, essential and non-essential, are open at this time. I am a flight attendant for the largest airline in the world and have flown to many different cities recently. I have seen many families with their children on board traveling safely and doing their part in successfully protecting themselves and others properly. After witnessing children, small toddlers to high schoolers, wearing masks, sanitizing properly while maintaining a safe distance, I strongly feel that our children need to be given the option right now to return to in-person learning. I feel that our schools and our children's education is at a very important determination right now, and time is crucial. These children need the opportunity to excel and not to be left behind many other public schools around the country that are currently open or reopening as of next week. This decision could be detrimental to our kids' future. The risk of our kids contracting the COVID-19 virus is far less than the risk of increased learning disabilities, learning social anxiety, and most of all, depression. The next one is from Jennifer and Scott Croning. We are the parents of 3 PVUSD students currently enrolled at Paradise Valley High School, Pinnacle High School, and Boulder Creek Elementary. On August 26th, Dr. Welsh provided an update to all PVUSD families stating that the earliest return to in-person learning would be in early to mid-October. This is unacceptable and negligent for many reasons. One, online learning is less effective for students than in-person learning. The American Academy of Pediatrics strongly advocates for in-person learning and identifies the many risks for students associated with ongoing school closures in its COVID-19 planning considerations guidance for school reentry. The vulnerable students in our district are the most negatively impacted by online learning. 2, PVUSD has developed benchmarks for returning to in-person learning that are more restrictive than the states and counties guidelines. The draconian PVUSD requirements unnecessarily prolong the return to in-person learning for PVUSD students. Dashboard updates on September 3rd indicate that PVUSD has already met both state and county benchmarks for returning to the classroom for hybrid learning. 3, PVUSD is not following state and county recommendations by failing to offer a hybrid option when indicated by data and benchmarks. 4, other schools and districts in our community have returned or are returning to in-person learning within the next 2 weeks. These schools include Cave Creek Unified School District, Fountain Hills Unified School District, and the last one. My name is Leah Knably, and I'm writing to you as the parent of a 3rd grade student at Desert Cove. Although the learning environment has changed, my child is learning many skills. Her technology skills are expanding every day, and her typing skills are improving as she learns to use the keyboard. She is completing Zern math and written activities put together carefully by her teachers. Everyone's effort has been amazing. I want to take a moment to let you know that I appreciate that as the governing board and district administration, you have allowed learning to continue in this new environment. I appreciate that you have prioritized keeping my child safe by allowing her to learn from home. Please continue to use the metrics and only reopen our schools when, according to the Maricopa County dashboard, our district is entirely green as you previously approved. And that concludes the comments. I just want to reiterate, though I only read a minute and a half of each comment, the governing board and the superintendent's office did receive and had a chance to review these comments in their entirety.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. And before we move on to, I just want to make sure for the record, just to clarify and correct a couple of things that I heard in the comments there. One, there were a number of comments that referred to all, quote, all districts around us reopening. I'd just like to clarify, Cave Creek is planning on a full opening on September 8th. Scottsdale is currently surveying their families regarding an implementation of a potential hybrid model and is targeting a return to classes at the end of this month. And one of our other neighbors, Deer Valley, is aiming towards a staggered start, and they're likely going to begin that at the end of September and early October. So just wanted to clarify that because we heard some comments on that. One of the other comments referenced that we'd hit a 5% positivity in August. Again, just to clarify, today was actually the first day that we hit 5% positivity, which was very exciting. I'd also just like to clarify that there was, I think, a couple of statements that talked about the timeliness of the data on the Maricopa County dashboard. Again, just to clarify, the data is not weeks behind. The data that was posted today runs all the way up through August the 29th. So there is obviously a bit of a delay. There's about a 5-day delay when it is currently posted, but it is not, quote, weeks behind. And then there was a comment, I think, that had alluded earlier to plans of the district to not return until, quote, after winter break. There is obviously no validity to that statement. I don't know who out there might have been suggesting that, but it is not something that we have been discussed. So again, just wanted to put those out there just to clarify a couple of things that I heard in the comments there that were not accurate.
Thank you very much, Dr. Welsh. As we have said, the board is not able to respond because he's not on the agenda, but I do want to thank Ms. Anderson. I hope you've had a chance to take a sip of water at this point. I think if our next meeting is virtual, we might want to consider having 2 readers so that no one has to sit and try and do that. I think she did a yeoman's job, particularly trying to get all the names in. So thank you again. Thank you to members of our community for providing those comments. And with that, we will continue on with the meeting. First on our agenda is consideration and approval of revisions to policy IHA. This is a second read, so we will need approval. And I will turn it over to Dr. Welsh.
Thank you, President Greenberg. So as you noted, this is the second reading on revisions to policy IHA. Specifically, this adds the celebration and the observance of Sandra Day O'Connor Civics Celebration Day. It's not a legal holiday, but it does provide a date for us to spend time for civics education on that date. These changes are based upon recommendations from the Arizona School Boards Association, and we recommend approval on the second read.
Excellent. Dr. Skidmore, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Does any member of the board have any comments or questions? Any further? If not, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Dr. Skidmore,
Aye.
Mrs. Matura,
Aye.
Mrs. Greenberg,
Aye.
Mrs. Case,
Aye.
Mrs. Bacon.
Aye.
Thank you. At 8:40 on Thursday, September 3rd, we have unanimous approval of this policy revision. And back to Dr. Welsh for our second policy revision.
Thank you again, President Greenberg. This second policy revision for policy KB updates our policy regarding parent involvement in education. This is based on a change in statute that requires the Department of Education to post on its website a statutory handbook of parental rights, and that we would have to provide a link on our website to that handbook. Again, this is based upon recommendations from the Arizona School Boards Association, and we recommend approval of this item.
Thank you very much. Dr. Skidmore, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Does any member of the board have any comments or questions on policy KB, the changes or the revisions to policy KB? I'm not seeing any, so may we have a roll call vote, Ms. Chisholm?
Dr. Skidmore,
Aye.
Mrs. Matura,
Aye.
Mrs. Greenberg,
Aye.
Mrs. Case,
Aye.
Mrs. Bacon.
Aye.
Thank you. At 8:41 on Thursday, September 3rd, we have unanimous approval of this policy revision. Next is consideration and approval of the student dress addendum to the 2021 Parent-Student Handbook. Dr. Welsh, are we ready to turn it? I'm going to turn it over to you to turn it over to Dr. Von Echten.
Perfect. Thank you again, President Greenberg. I will have Dr. Von Echten introduce this item. I want to note we do have comments, so after he is done presenting, we'll make sure to read that comment. And with that, Dr. Von Echten, I believe you are live and ready to go.
Thank you. Thank you very much. President Greenberg, governing board members, Dr. Welsh, and cabinet. Tonight, I present to you a first and second reading of recommended amendment to the 2020-21 Parent-Student Handbook pertaining to student dress code and the wearing of cloth face masks. The language you see is recommended to provide clarity to our communities and school leaders for the wearing of cloth face masks. And for some background, initially, this language was presented by me to the COVID-19 response team. The COVID-19 team does serve as the district emergency response team, and we sought their input. Afterwards, the charge to create the final language was then delegated to the Superintendent's Committee on Reopening, or otherwise known as SCORE, is the acronym. This committee includes representation from stakeholder groups from within the district. And as you recall, SCORE did create the PB Schools Prepared Reopening Plan, which was approved by the board in June. If the approved amendment, if approved, the amendment will be added to the current 2020-21 Parent-Student Handbook as an addendum and will remain there as deemed necessary through the pandemic. It is recommended that the governing board approve the cloth face amendment to the cloth face mask amendment to the 2021 Parent-Student Handbook, and I can take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Dr. Von Echten. Actually, why don't we hear I know there was one comment submitted specifically to address this agenda item. So I will turn it back over to Ms. Anderson very quickly, and then we can open the floor for questions.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys are thrilled to hear me again. This one is from Dina Chalu. Thank you so much for all you're doing. As a child raised entirely in the PVUSD and now with children of my own, I am confident that PVUSD is doing the best they can during these unprecedented times. I believe the board should reconsider elementary recess not being considered as a vigorous activity in the 2020-2021 parent handbook. With regards to the upcoming changes to the parent handbook regarding masks, I am concerned that elementary recess is not considered vigorous activity and is not exempt from mask wearing. While our family embraces mask wearing and social distancing, I do believe that elementary recess should be considered vigorous activity. I can't tell you the number of times I have seen elementary age children come in from recess red-faced and hair flopped with sweat. Water bottles are not accessible after lunch recess, at least at our school. And even in October, temperatures can reach up to the upper 90s, hopefully not higher. I know that our school socially distanced games like freeze tag and shadow tag are popular, as well as many other running games. Once again, thank you for all you do. I'm proud to be a parent in the PVUSD district, as well as a member of the Wildfires School Council.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Does anyone have any questions or comments? I see Mrs. Case.
No.
Nope, you're still muted, Nance. Dr. Welsh, can you?
Yep, I'd be glad to help. Hang on. There we go. You should be, there we go.
Okay, thank you. With that on there, I couldn't switch mine. Okay. It says on here, students may remove face masks during time specifically determined by the school administrative team as a designated face mask breaks, including but not limited to times for actively eating and drinking and at times of vigorous exercise or activity. Elementary recess is not considered rigorous activity. Face mask breaks will require appropriate physical distance. I think if you could say kids are physically distancing, that they should be able to do that at recess. I was just recently at one of my grandchildren's schools and they were doing that. And I just think, and it's not even as hot where they were as it is here. I think we have to be careful with that. And I think there should be a little bit change in the verbiage right there. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
Actually, Nancy, I'm not sure I understand what is the change you're recommending.
Oh, I'm sorry. They said that, like the comment was, elementary recess is not considered. It says vigorous activity, and I think it is. I've seen many, many children come in hot and sweaty and running around. I just think that they need to be able to, if they're in small groups, that's different, but if they're running around, they need to be able to take their mask off.
Go ahead, Ms. Greenberg.
I don't know, Mrs. Matura, did you have something along those lines? Or I suspect what Dr. Welsh wanted to have Dr. Van Echten do is
explain.
Let me start there because I think there was probably a different question. Yeah, if you could, Dr. Van Echten, maybe share a little bit from the perspective of our committees on that language.
Sure, absolutely. I think that within the committee, our parent members and our principal members debated this one quite a bit, but felt strongly that recess being shorter in duration than a structured PE class, recess itself being unstructured and harder to monitor, that the level of activity typical in a recess would not prohibit a child from wearing a face mask and being to have a level of physical activity commensurate with that. We do have fortunately the ability, the luxury of having a patron of our district, which is a practicing pediatrician and has served as a bit of a counsel on some of these matters too, who also chimed in that the belief that a recess, remaining masked throughout a recess would be appropriate.
Thank you, Dr. Van Nechten. Mrs. Matura?
Yes, I have a different comment later, but right now, is it possible that we could reach out to schools and maybe encourage them to allow students that to bring out water, because this is a time where we're not going to be encouraging using water fountains and things like that, that maybe as individual schools could be looking at their policies for when they're allowing students to bring water outside, that might alleviate some of this as well.
Yeah, Ms. Mitchell, I think that's, go ahead, Mitch. Yep.
I say absolutely. We would encourage that families do send their children to school with clearly marked, labeled water containers that they can have accessible to them at all times.
Thank you. And I do have a different comment if, unless someone else had a comment about this.
Does anybody else have a comment? I'm seeing shaking heads, so back to you, Mrs. Matura.
Okay. I just was looking for some clarification language in the final sentence where it says these requirements will remain in place until such time as the COVID-19 pandemic has subsided to the point that wearing cloth-based masks is no longer necessary. I would recommend adding the words subsided to the point that PV schools determines that wearing cloth masks is no longer necessary. I'm just concerned that if we don't specifically state who is making the determination when it's no longer necessary, that there'll be a lot of confusion of, well, they heard somewhere that it's no longer necessary and therefore this part is over. There's lots of different opinions going out all the time now about everything. And if we can just be clear that it will be when the district determines, that way they can wait for that specific timing.
Yeah, to your question, Ms. Matura, I'm sure that's something we could add there if that's the intent or desire of the board.
Absolutely. That would provide good clarification. Thank you.
Mrs. Case?
Let me say that I am totally in favor of children wearing face masks in classes. That is not part of my concern at all. I just think when they're running around hard, which they need to do so that they can do better at school, they need to be able to breathe openly. And my oldest daughter was telling me once, Mom, I even jog with a face mask on. I thought, yeah, but you're in San Diego and not Phoenix. It's hot here, and that's different than where it's not hot. In the wintertime, that's a different story. But when it's really hot, I think that's a lot of problems. My opinion. Thank you.
Mrs. Bacon?
Thanks. I have a question that's kind of maybe not related, but not related. Are we going to be able to open our playgrounds? Let's just assume we're going back to the beginning of October. Do we have to follow City of Phoenix public park regulations for those schools that are in the City of Phoenix? Because they're not open now.
President Bacon, go ahead, Mitch. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to. I can't see on my camera, so I have a hard time seeing it.
I can only see one of you at a time right now. That is true. I mean, our intent, and I think we just have to see what our opening looks like when the metrics get there, if it coincides with anything coming from the City of Phoenix. You know, public parks versus our parks, we have followed their direction and closed our playgrounds and have made that known to the public that, like the city, we have done that and we followed their, I don't want to say follow their direction, but we coincide with their direction. So I think going forward, we need to see where our city is at in making that determination.
Thank you. I want to make it very clear to everyone listening, I am not against recess. I believe in recess. I believe in play. I think it's necessary. I just want to make sure that we don't set our community up for an expectation that we may not be able to do. And while I agree that it is hot in Phoenix, I do think more happens on a playground that is unobserved than anywhere else in a school. So with the limited number of staff that we have on those in those playgrounds during lunch recess, I would be very concerned if children are not wearing masks. So that's where I stand. I agree with the way this is written.
Board Member Bacon, that was the mindset of in terms of making this decision. Just that is the level of how much can be, it's unsupervised in terms of that free play. Back to the City of Phoenix piece, I think we might need to look at if there's a distinction is that we are not a public park. When we closed our playgrounds to the public during the time of when the stay-at-home order was there, it was to avoid pickup games and things like that could, not help mitigate the spread. This is a more controlled environment, and we might have that latitude, to allow it for our own use.
Okay, that clarifies it, and I'm good with us having recess. To be clear, again, I'm not against recess, but thank you for that clarification, Dr. Von Echten.
You're welcome.
I mean, I think I just jump in a little bit, I think we are still navigating new challenges here. So what recess is going to look like may not be what we are used to recess being. So it's all piece, I believe. Does anybody else have any comments on the addendum? If not, may we have a motion to approve, since this is first and second read, the addendum with the revision to that last line as we discussed, with the addition of the district determining when cloth masks would no longer be necessary.
Red Rover, let me say so move.
Thank you, Dr. Skidmore. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Aye.
Mrs. Matura,
Aye.
Mrs. Greenberg,
Aye.
Mrs. Case,
Nay. And let me just say, I totally support face masks in class, but I think there should be some flexibility on recess, whether it's a structured recess that they can run around when they're 6 feet apart. I just think to say it blanketly is wrong. So my vote is no.
and Mrs. Bacon.
Aye.
Thank you very much. By a vote of 4-1, the motion passes at 8:56 p.m. on Thursday, September 3rd. Next on the agenda is consideration approval of K-6 configuration for elementary school number 33. I guess I'm throwing it to...
You can throw it right over to Dr. Jarris. That'd
okay,
be fine.
Dr. Jarris, I'm throwing it over to you.
Thank you, President Greenberg, Dr. Wells, and Governing Board. This is a recommendation on the grade level configuration for elementary school 33, as you know, has begun construction. This is a continuation of the conversation as we started this in you on March 5th, 2020, but delayed it until we have further conversations and feedback regarding the elementary and middle school boundaries as we had a few weeks ago. Just to remind you of our process here, of what we've gone through with the community process. We did have some Sky Crossing community meetings there in December, where we introduced the school and the plans and received some feedback from our community members. And then again, in January, we had another meeting with the builders and had a session with the community. We coincided that with a configuration survey from members of the community regarding preference for K-6, K-8, fairly mixed interest, and as well as a handful that had no preference. And then at our last boundary committee meetings, we did receive many comments, as you know, public comments, which included several comments regarding K-6 or K-8 preferences. At this time, we are going to continue with our recommendation that the elementary school 33 be a K-6 configuration to start. That's based on some feedback that we received and some observations of our own, including campus size limitations that limit the ability to have some of those typical K-8 amenities on a campus of this size. Also looking at the need to have some capacity for early childhood and special education and gifted programming. Looking at the overall school capacity of students, but if you're trying to factor in how many K-8 students could fit those numbers, we also have to factor in that we're going to be using some of the space for some of those other special programs. Again, based on our community feedback and also based on the fact that we are looking at the limitations of the campus in terms of the ability to offer some of the electives and extracurriculars that are available at the nearby middle schools. For those reasons, we are looking to recommend a K-6 configuration for elementary school 33.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jarris. Does any member of the board have any questions?
Mrs. Greenberg?
Mrs. Matura, no, I can't see you, so.
Okay, I figured. Thank you. Dr. Jarris, I noticed you said you're recommending a K-6 model to start, which means that if down the line there does become a higher population of the grade 7-8 that would prefer to stay at the school and relook at a 7-8 configuration at that point in time, it would be possible to go back and look at that?
It would certainly be possible to have that conversation. But one of the reasons why it's difficult to have that now is, there's technically not even a boundary set for that community to know who would be in the school and who would actually choose to open enroll or enroll at one of the nearby middle schools versus staying at the K-8, knowing what limitations are going to, or what the programming is actually going to look like. It's hard to kind of predict what I want if I don't, what a K-8 would actually look like in that setting. So we prefer to have that conversation with a sitting community.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? Seeing none, as far as I can see. Dr. Skidmore, may we have a motion to approve the K-6 configuration recommendation for elementary school number 33?
So moved.
And Ms. Chisholm, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Dr. Skidmore? Mrs. Matura? Mrs. Greenberg?
Aye.
Mrs. Case?
Aye.
Mrs. Bacon?
Aye.
Thank you very much. We have a unanimous approval of the K-6 configuration at 9:01 on Thursday, September 3rd. And next on the agenda is consideration approval of the boundary change recommendations for elementary 33, Wildfire, Fireside, and Boulder Creek elementary schools. And I believe that goes to Mrs. Felton.
Thank you. Good evening, President Greenberg, governing board members, and Dr. Welsh. Before you is a request to adopt the attendance boundary changes for elementary school 33, Wildfire, Fireside, and Boulder Creek elementary schools as were presented at the community meetings on August 25th and 27th. These community meetings were held virtually to discuss the attendance boundary changes due to the opening of elementary school 33. Also discussed were Explorer or Mountain Trail middle school boundaries. About 250 folks participated in these meetings. Due to the virtual format of the meetings, the members of the public submitted comments to the governing board for review. 347 comments were received related to the proposals. The only attendance boundary changes being recommended this evening at this time are for the elementary school. What you see before you right now is the current boundaries that we do have for our elementary schools. This boundary recommendation is to set the boundaries for this new elementary school that you'll see here at the middle, titled Elementary School 33, or we sometimes like to affectionately call it ES 33. And as you see, it's located in the Sky Crossing community here. The existing attendance boundary is bisected, and the development is divided into two parts along the 32nd Street alignment. So this, as you see, the eastern half of the community is a boundary to go to Wildfire Elementary, and those on the western side are boundary to go to Boulder Creek Elementary. Thank you, my controller there.
The recommended boundary for elementary school 33 includes not only this sky crossing community that you see here in the middle, but it would also include Ridgeview community, which is currently within the Fireside boundary, and Desert Peak, which currently falls within the Boulder Creek boundary, as well as some of the surrounding areas that will eventually be developed out. We're reviewing additional data before bringing a request for middle school boundary recommendation at an October meeting. At this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have and do request approval of these new elementary school attendance boundaries.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Felton. Does any member of the board have any comments or questions for Mrs. Felton?
I have one.
Was that Nancy? Okay, Nancy.
Nancy.
Mrs. Case.
I'm just curious, the desert trails, you can just tell where it is from the map. How far east does desert trails go?
It goes to Scottsdale Road.
So is desert trails being changed at all with this map?
Not with this recommendation.
Oh, and is Fireside changing?
Yes, it is. They are grabbing, and I have to look at the name because I always say the wrong, incorrect name. The Ridgeview community.
Can
that's
you switch
located
it back
over
to the other one?
Which is located over here just east of Pinnacle High School. So here, I'm sorry, here's Pinnacle High School, the little dot. And so the community is right over here.
Okay. Okay, I see now. Thank
Someone's
you.
messing with me. The person in controlling the maps. Yeah, it's a very small development. It's located just at west of Pinnacle High School. And they're really less than 2 handfuls worth of students in that. But we are going to move them over to elementary school 33 is the recommendation.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments regarding the recommended boundaries? Since I can't see everybody. If not, Dr. Skidmore, may we have a motion to approve the boundary change recommendations?
Well, Mrs. Felton, we're going to get rid of your horseshoe. Goodbye, horseshoe.
Not yet.
No, this
No,
is
this is only elementary. This is not middle school yet.
I thought this was her horseshoe here. Okay.
You'll have to be patient for that additional conversation, Dr. Skidmore.
Thank you very much for clarifying. So move.
Thank you very much. If no one has any any more questions or comments, Ms. Chisholm, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Dr. Skidmore?
Aye.
Mrs. Matura?
Aye.
Mrs. Greenberg?
Aye.
Mrs. Case?
Aye.
Mrs. Bacon?
Aye.
Excellent. At 9:06 on September 3rd, we have unanimous approval of the elementary boundary changes. Next on the agenda is consideration approval to award contract 20-034, and I will turn it back to Mrs. Felton.
Thank you again. Good evening, President Greenberg, governing board members, and Dr. Welsh. Before you is a request to approve the guaranteed maximum price, which is sometimes called the GMP, for the demolition work at the North Cannon High School Performing Arts Center. On June 2nd, you awarded the construction manager or CMAR contract to Chase Building Team. Since that time, the design team made up of district staff, Chase construction staff, along with the architects, has been working to finalize the details on this project. The guaranteed maximum price is being split into 2 phases to keep the construction on schedule. The first phase, which is before you tonight, can begin upon your approval and is the demolition of items that are to be upgraded, such as the acoustical curtains and paneling, seating, lighting, carpeting, flooring, sound systems, outside planters, and wall coverings. The second phase of the GMP, which is to be presented to you on October 8th, would include what you think is more of the traditional renovation and would include the stage, house, lobby, restrooms, ticket booth, LED lighting, seating, sound system, as well as some exterior upgrades. that still requires some finalizing of the plans before the GMP can be finalized. The entire project will be completed by the week of May 25th, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have and do request approval of this item.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Felton. Does any member of the board have any questions or comments for Mrs. Felton?
Mrs. Greenberg,
Yes, Mrs. Baker.
I'm wondering if I could ask Mrs. Felton, this is coming from bond dollars that voters approved?
Absolutely, and that's a great point. Thank you. Yes,
Just wanted to
it's
make
our
sure everyone
voters
knew.
to allow for these projects.
President Greenberg, I have a question.
Dr. Skidmore?
Now, auditorium seating, as we well know, is pricey. What happens to the auditorium seating once torn out? Do we donate that? Do we auction it off? Do we give it to another school? I mean, I just wondered if we repurposed it.
So anything that is removed would be the possession of the builder and is taken in. So what's going to happen is the seating will probably be auctioned and would reduce the price of the overall project. And I don't know that they're taking all the seating out. They do try to retain as much seating as possible, but frankly, some of it does need to be totally removed.
I understand, but it just seems to me like if you have, 2 or 3 chairs that are left over that are kind of, doable, that somebody should get some benefit from that. Even if you put them at the road and let somebody take some.
Yeah. Typically what we do is we don't give away any of our product. It's sold at a competitive price and then goes to help reduce the overall cost of a project. And that will be whether it's a school bus or be whether it's things that come out of a building that may be able to be reused.
Thank you, Mrs. Felton. Does anybody else have any other questions regarding this contract? If not, may we have a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
And Ms. Chisholm, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Dr. Skidmore,
Aye.
Mrs. Matura,
Aye.
Mrs. Greenberg,
Aye.
Mrs. Case,
Aye.
Mrs. Bacon.
Aye.
Thank you very much. At 9/11 on September 3rd, we have a unanimous approval of contract 20-034. Next on the agenda is ratification of vouchers. Dr. Skidmore, may I have a motion, please? And may we have a roll call vote?
Dr. Skidmore, Mrs. Matura,
Aye.
Mrs. Greenberg,
Aye.
Mrs. Case,
Aye.
Mrs. Bacon.
Abstain.
Thank you very much. By a vote of 4-0 with 1 abstention, we have approval of vouchers. Last on the agenda is gifts and donations. Of course, we are always grateful for all of our donors and the support that they provide our schools and our district overall. We'd like to particularly thank tonight the Pinnacle Peak Elementary School PTO which donated $21,586 for the marquee at Pinnacle Peak Prep. Again, thank you very much, and it's especially appreciated during this pandemic. And Dr. Skidmore, may we have a motion to approve the gifts and donations?
So moved.
And may we have a roll call vote, please?
Dr. Skidmore,
Aye.
Mrs. Matura,
Aye.
Mrs. Greenberg,
Aye.
Mrs. Case,
Aye.
Mrs. Bacon.
Aye. Sorry.
Okay, thank you very much. At 9:13, we have unanimous approval of the gifts and donations report. Just wanted to remind everybody that our next regular meeting of the governing board is not till Thursday, October 8th. And I hope that at that point, We will be able to see everybody in person. So like everybody says, mask up and let's keep going for the green. And if nobody else has any other comments for the good of the order, Dr. Skidmore, may we have a motion to adjourn?
So move, and happy Labor Day weekend.
Well, let's have a roll call vote for this one.
Dr. Skidmore,
Happy Labor Day. Aye.
Mrs. Matura,
Mask up over Labor Day weekend while you're having fun. Aye.
Mrs. Greenberg,
Same thing. Everybody keep those masks on, but enjoy the long weekend. Aye.
Mrs. Case,
Aye.
Mrs. Bacon.
Aye.
So at 9:14 on Thursday the 3rd, unanimous approval of adjournment. Have a great one, everybody. Thank you for staying with us. And like I said, hope to see everybody in person at the next one. Good night.